He first marched against injustice at the age of 15. From the streets of Durban, he's gone on to lead some of the world's most important human rights bodies. My guest on Under the Skin is the new head of Amnesty International, Kumi Naidoo. Kumi Naidoo, welcome to Under the Skin.
Thank you, John, and welcome to my home here in Yeovil.
I want to start off in August 2012. You're halfway through your period of leading Greenpeace, the global environmental justice organization, and you're hanging off the side of an oil rig in the middle of the Arctic Sea, 8 meters above the freezing water, and you're getting pounded for 15 hours by water cannons. How did a man who grew up in South Africa's warmest city find himself in the Arctic?
Well, firstly, you know how Americans say, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Unfortunately, what happens in the Arctic does not stay in the Arctic.
Yes, yes.
So as an African being where the Arctic and the Antarctic are far away from us, we might think that it doesn't impact on us. But the melting snow in the Arctic and the Antarctic is causing sea level rise as a result of a warming planet and impacts on all coastal communities in Africa and all over the world. So whether we like it or not, what happens in the Arctic and the Antarctic impacts on the whole world.
In your role at Greenpeace, you obviously tried to broaden understanding but also awareness of things like global warming. How much did you need to change your own thinking to realize that these kind of what appear to be abstract problems are actually the problems that fundamentally hit the poor hardest?
Well, I was the chair of the global campaign against poverty, which drove all those calls on the G8 to cancel debt, and we had some success and so on. But what I was seeing is that to a large extent, like if you look at some of the very good development programs in Bangladesh,
yes,
sea level rise was wiping out some of those successes. And it became clear to me that you cannot address development if you don't put environmental considerations in center. And I'm embarrassed a little bit to say that I should have arrived at a deeper understanding of the threat of climate before I did. But I'm happy to say that the person that played the most important role probably in my life to help me make the journey is my daughter, who, when Greenpeace approached me to consider the job, when I was in the middle of a hunger strike around what was happening in Zimbabwe, I said, thank you very much, I'm deeply honored, but it's very bad timing. When my daughter spoke to me later, she said, Dad, I won't talk to you.
How old was she then?
She was 15.
Okay, so she's already telling you what to do.
Well, she started much earlier than that.
Okay.
And then she said, I won't talk to you if you don't seriously consider it.
Yes.
Because it's pathetic. Somebody who's had the educational opportunities that you have has not bothered to fully understand how climate impacts, not only affects my life, but my generation's future. It was quite sobering, I have to say, and a bit chilling to hear it from your child.
So doing Greenpeace changes you. How do you think the fact that you, an African coming from the developing world, gets into a prominent position in an organization that some people for many years felt had very northern hemisphere concerns? What did you have to shift within Greenpeace and indeed through your life as an international activist?
Well, I was headhunted for the position partly because Greenpeace needed somebody to do a few things. One was it needed to break this north-south dichotomy.
Yes.
It needed to break this is environment and this is development, because basically what I had to do was to put addressing poverty as a key part of our considerations. In the jargon, it called sustainable equity or equitable sustainability, right? I also wanted to, joining Greenpeace, send a particular message about leadership. I think for an organization that takes a lot of calculated, considered risks, like Greenpeace, where we use civil disobedience as a key part of our strategy.
Which is what you were doing in the Arctic. You were going out in a boat, climbing, invading somebody else's property to make a political point.
Yes. And most of the time, the people who do that are these brave young activists from around the world who quite often are full-time are volunteers. They're not full-time staff. And I felt, I was actually quite moved. About 20 activists were arrested the year before in Greenland.
Yes.
Where I did my first. Now, I must be honest, I'm not a good swimmer, I'm not a climber. In fact, before I did the action in Russia, I was in a meeting in Cape Town, and the team that was organizing sent me to a rock climbing center in Cape Town, where I did a one-day crash course on how to climb.
Of course, you could have been the best swimmer in the world, but once you're in that water, you finished.
Well, if you fall in that water in normal swimming clothes, you'll be dead in about 3 minutes, maybe if you're lucky, 5 minutes.
Yes.
But we use protective clothing. I actually am, having said I'm not a good climber, it's not surprising that actually my first attempt, I fell into the ocean.
Okay.
So, and that was a miserable experience because the entire time I was like soaking.
Yes.
But, if I look at that, the idea was to say that the life of a volunteer, maybe unknown, doesn't have the same profile of who is the leader at that point, is just as important. And I felt that it is important for our leaders in all spheres, sectors, countries, and so on, to show that they are connected to ordinary people's lives, that their lives are not more important than those that often are sent to war. If you look at the United States, the people that go to war are people from working class backgrounds mainly, people of color, and so on. And there's no connection really between the leadership that makes a decision and the people that give their lives. And that's not good governance.